Good morning. As of late, I found myself in the position as a fourth grade teacher, high school soccer coach, and as a new mother, pondering the question, how do we empower our youth to unlock their potential to surpass previous generations and pass on a narrative written of remembrance, hope, unity, love, and of perseverance? My name is Natalie Sakuma. I want to share my story, rather, my grandfather's story, our story, the importance of this community, and why it matters to the next generation. I am the great-granddaughter of Nobu and Takeo Sakuma, the granddaughter of Kazuko and Satoru Sakuma, and the daughter of Barbara and Brian Sakuma. I've come to realize the importance of our unique story, not because I know what happened in the books, but by truly seeing the lives at work in this world, the impact they had on me and those in our community, and how my own journey brought me here, the relationship with my grandfather, and the lessons he taught me. I remember growing up predominantly in a white school, being one of the only Asian students. I remember the little things, like my father packing Japanese food for my lunches and people commenting on the smell or look, or noticing that my traditions were different, that I did things differently, and kids pointing it out. I was self-conscious and embarrassed of who I was. I didn't want to stand out or be different, and it led me to deny so much of what made me unique. And sadly, it even made me poke fun of myself, even with others, something I laughed about with my community, but deep down, it affected how I viewed myself and my own story. But as I matured and was more influenced by my family, I began to claim my identity and found a different and true pride in who I was and from whom I was. As I explored my family, I learned more and more about their journey, the internment camps, the hardships, the heartache, the loss. I felt outraged at the injustice. I struggled to process and accept what our country and leaders had done to our people. I felt their pain and suffering. This was my family. I wanted to know more. I needed to understand. So I went to my grandfather and I asked him about his story. I asked him why, when I did get him to talk about it, although not always very willingly, he didn't ever share it in anger, frustration, or resentment. It's like I wanted him to tell me how wrong it was, how horribly it affected him and his family, and how unjust it was. Everything he had to go through. I so easily could have been convinced that our story was that of only pain, and that it was my duty to carry that burden on to the next generation. But his only response was, I don't look back at things of which I cannot change and dwell on what has happened. I'd rather look forward. I'm sure at the time I may have felt sorry for myself in some instances, but like I said, I would rather look ahead and make sure some of these things don't happen again. I think people shouldn't be judged by anything but their own individual character. Hearing that changed me. And it changed how I viewed him. It gave me so much more meaning to the life I had witnessed in front of me all these years. And going on that journey from not understanding myself, being embarrassed of my uniqueness, to finally understanding what his life meant, and learning these lessons was monumental. My grandfather endured the hardships of being interned at Manzanar. He endured fighting in the war with his 5 other brothers, losing their land and possessions, and facing racism. And yet, he found a way to persevere. He and his family created a new start seemingly out of nothing, one of which is the family farm, Sakuma Brothers, that is still being run by the 3rd and 4th generation. He raised the family with hope for a better future. But the most remarkable thing about him wasn't that he found a future even after these hardships, but it's how he lived that life. I only ever knew him as the kindest, most soft-spoken, humble, giving, and most courageous man. He never let these tragedies and hardships define him. He persevered despite it all. He was humble, kind, hopeful, giving, and loving despite it all. One of the greatest legacies he left behind was that of humility and selfless giving. He would always be there for his community, friends, family, and simply anyone around him. He donated to countless charities, schools, families, colleges, sports, and never turned a blind eye to those in need. He was honorable in his transactions, humble in his achievements, loving in his choices, and always had a listening ear. He never acted, spoke, or lived a life of resentment, but a life filled with purpose and hope. If you knew my grandfather, you knew he was not a man of many words, but a man of quiet, humble, empowering actions. How beautiful is it that someone can live such a powerful life that no words are needed to truly shape his family and his own community. Through his life, he taught me to never let hardships define who I am, to love deeply, to give greatly, to listen intently, to hope fiercely, to work honorably, and to act humbly. My grandfather taught me not only of his own strength and determination, but gave me a lens to also see that of his community's strength, determination, and resilience. He was a remarkable man. His life is evidence of this and truly opened my eyes to what the Japanese experience meant. And I believe this is how we teach our next generation to surpass every hardship and poor decisions that come before us. We speak the stories of our ancestors, but then we also live the stories of hope and love. My grandfather passed away in 2022 at the age of 96, shortly after attending the 80th anniversary here on Bainbridge Island of the Executive Order 9066. He was and remains my hero. Grandpa Sat was the most precious person to me and the person that has shaped who I am now in every way. This is my heritage and the legacy of my ancestors. They have a story to tell, lessons to teach, and a hope to be shared from generation to generation. I often think how easy it could have been for him to share a narrative of anger, frustration, and resentment. But how special was it that he never let us carry that burden? He never wanted us to grow up with that narrative or let us wear it on our shoulders. He wanted us to remember, to share, and to show the world what happens when you respond with love, determination, peace, unity, strength, courage, and honor, just as his own community did the same. And he wanted us to let it not happen again. A quiet yet resounding sense of hope. This is what my grandfather taught me. I share this with my fourth grade students every year. I feel called to share my grandfather's story, the Japanese-American experience, and what it means to the next generation. Even more so, I want to live the life my grandfather walked before me, a life that so evidently speaks these lessons without even uttering a word. We decided to name our daughter Akira Nobuko Sakuma in honor of this special heritage and her lineage, to remember and honor this narrative. I want her to know this story, the story that is as much a part of her as it is of me. I want her to come here to Bainbridge Island, to look at these plaques that name the families that were taken, and to see the power, the strength, the resilience, the unity, and the love all bound up in her name, her family, and our narrative. I want to share our legacy with her, and I want to share the lives each one of them have lived, because I've learned it means something. We all have the capacity to carry our ancestors with us and speak their stories. We all have the capacity to be the change this world needs, not only by our words, but by our actions. This is how I carry my grandfather with me. This is how I share his legacy with the next generation. This is how we let it not happen again. For myself and my family, thank you for this amazing community and all of your stories.